In this video, we'll cover another claim made by HDRCFX Cornwall. First, we'll present another correct prediction. Then we'll cover the claim alleging that the LVMPD report photos were taken 10 floors above. Finally, we'll credit the early timeline shown in the last episode. First, another correct prediction. In the last episode, we suggested that the airport video had a recording gap due to a hardware glitch. Let's now examine the first misaligned volley in the airport video. It is actually out of sync, due to a hardware glitch on the cell phone. The cell phone probably froze due to being hit, as this moment is very chaotic in the video.
Okay, let's go.
This is now confirmed, as posted by the user Lucum76, the author of that video. Since the first video about Cornwall's claims was greeted with a warm reception by his fans, as well as a well-researched and thoughtful answer by the man himself, here's a sequel. In one of his videos, Cornwall made the claim that the crime scene photos in the LVMPD report were not taken on the 32nd floor, but 10 floors up, in the Four Seasons.
Those crime scene photos were not taken from the 32nd floor. The sound was 10 floors above.
This claim is easily refuted, without any 3D recreation. That's because on YouTube, we can see actual views from Mandalay Bay. Here's a video filmed by a tourist who stayed in 32-135. Here's a video filmed by a tourist who stayed 10 floors above, in the Four Seasons. Her suite was in a different wing, close to the center. Since we'll focus only on vertical differences between distant objects, not horizontal ones, not being directly above Paddock's room makes little difference. For more clarity, we'll also use views from Google Earth, which are sharper. In Google Earth, we'll use accurate coordinates and altitude, to avoid relying on textures. We'll cross-check Google Earth views with actual views to verify their validity. Let's start with a simple comparison. This is how the view changes, if we travel vertically between 32-135, and the Four Seasons 10 floors above. This switch in perspective changes how objects overlap in the picture. Since we're concerned with a change in altitude, we'll deal with vertical differences only. An example, the tip of the Luxor obelisk overlaps this building when viewed from 32-135, but it's below the same building when viewed from the Four Seasons. Before we start our analysis, let's show the key buildings. This is the Westgate, formerly Hilton. Note the protruding features on its rooftop. This is the Signature. These are three separate buildings, but from Mandalay Bay, they look like one. This is the Drew, which will be partially visible to the left of the Westgate. Let's see how the view from 32-135 compares to what we see in the LVMPD report, by pointing out specific details. The roof of the Westgate protrudes above the distant mountains. The roof of the Drew is below the roof of the Westgate, forming an L shape. The roofs of the Signature overlap the tops of the mountains. They're slightly below on the left and about level with the mountains on the right. On the left behind the Signature, there's a building reaching about 1/3 the height of the Signature. All these details match what we see in the LVMPD report. Let's now compare the view from the Four Seasons to the photos in the report. Note that the daytime view was taken from further to the east. This introduces horizontal shifts, but we only care about vertical differences. The roof of the Westgate is now below the distant mountains, in contrast to the report. The roof of the Drew is now flush with the Westgate, no longer forming an L shape, like in the report. In the daytime view, the Drew is mostly hidden, due to the horizontal shift, but you can still see it reaching the full height of the Westgate behind its diagonal edge. The roofs of the Signature are now quite a bit below the tops of the mountains, unlike in the report. The two comparisons tell us that the photos in the LVMPD report were taken from the 32nd floor, not from the Four Seasons. Cornwall's claim basically debunks itself.
In this second render even the buildings in the background made sense. The top of the drew was now flush with the distant mountains, and we could see the L-shaped silhouettes that the drew formed with the Hilton Grand Vacations building.
Correct, because that's exactly what you see from 32-135. Cornwall tried so hard to get his 3D view to match the report photos, that he didn't realize he was recreating the correct view from 32-135, and not the one you'd see from the Four Seasons. The reason for his faulty conclusion is likely some error in the 3D reconstruction he did based on nothing but a perspective photo. For proper reconstruction from a perspective photo, you need at least some of the following information. If you're missing all of it, like Cornwall, you have no objective way of verifying your reconstruction. There are many examples of how perspective can fool the viewer, such as the Ames room.
The room looked completely normal. This is something we've grown up with all our lives, and this assumption is so strong that it completely overrides the fact that the people are actually changing sizes. Even though in the real world, obviously people don't change sizes like balloons.
The author of the early timeline, shown in the previous episode, has been identified as Missy America on Twitter. Here's the latest version of the timeline, looking even better.